Hi everyone. Today's narrative writing lesson is all about suspense. Have you ever read a book that makes you wonder or worry? You know, a book that you can't put down. The kind of book that you read under the covers with a flashlight late at night. You know why a book like that is so interesting that you can't put it down? Well, it's because authors use suspense to make the reader wonder, worry, or just give you a hint, a sense of anticipation that something exciting is about to happen. And when a reader wonders or worries or gets that sense of anticipation, guess what they do? Yeah, they read on and on and on. That's a book that you can't put down. Let's look at where suspense comes in terms of the narrative writing diamond. An author will write an entertaining beginning to hook the reader in, then add a little bit of elaborative detail to describe something important to the story, then a hint of suspense, which really leads to the main event, the most important part of the story, right? Authors create suspense when they tell only a part of what's going on, which really makes you wonder something. So before we get to that main event, we're going to add just a hint of suspense to get the reader wondering and, of course, reading on, right? Here's a little example from Horrible Harry and the Green Slime. Some of you might have read this. It's written by Susie Klein. I want you to think, what do you wonder after reading this? I put my hand in the jar very carefully. Then Harry did. Slowly we opened the folded pieces of paper. Harry flashed his white teeth. I could tell he was happy about the name he drew. So what are you wondering? Well, if you're like me, you're probably wondering, what name did Harry draw? That's a hint of suspense. It's like a story question to build up that sense of anticipation. Because don't you want to find out what name he drew? Exactly. That's what the author wants you to do. And how are you going to find out what name he drew? Well, you're going to keep reading, aren't you? So here are some of the strategies that an author will use to raise a sense of wonder, add some suspense. An author will use story questions, word reference, and or the magic of 3 to make you wonder and worry. So here's some examples of story questions. If we look at the little boy, he's got his eye to the telescope. What do you think he's wondering? Yeah, what's out there? Right? How about the box all wrapped up? What are we wondering about that? That's right, we're wondering what's in the box, right? That's a good story question. Or how about the boy with the roar coming off the side of his head? I'd be wondering, what's making that noise? These are some great examples of story questions that add just a little sense of anticipation. Gets you to wonder or worry. An author will also use a word referent to build suspense. And a word reference is where you might describe something without naming the character or the object. So here's an example of that. The enormous creature stared at me. What are you wondering? What kind of creature, right? Is it a whale, an elephant, a rhino, a bear, a sea monster? What kind of enormous creature is it? That's how we build suspense through the use of a word referent. Then, an author will use the magic of 3 to make you wonder. And here's how the author does that. He gives the reader 3 hints using the 5 senses. You know, the sense of sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. You know how to use those, don't you? The author will take one of those sensory hints and put it together with a red flag word and phrase to help build suspense. Now, a red flag word or phrase is a word like suddenly, or a moment later, or in the blink of an eye. And it basically signals that something's about to happen. It raises a red flag. It gets the reader wondering or worrying. So an author will use a red flag word or phrase along with 3 sensory hints to really make the reader wonder or worry. That's what the magic of 3 is all about. Here's an example using red flag words and some sensory hints. Just then, I saw a dark shadow pass under my board in the water. I peered into the crystal blue sea, but I saw nothing else, so I paddled on. Before I knew it, a gray fin surfaced. I bent down to get a closer look and realized this creature must be huge. I took off in the opposite direction. To my surprise, a squeaking noise sounded nearby, and a sleek gray body gracefully swam closer. It was You were probably thinking at first that it might be a shark, right? But really, when we look at that last little hint, a squeaking noise, we realize that it's a dolphin and not a shark. But I bet you were a little bit worried. You were wondering what in the world was in that water with the main character, right? So was I. That's the magic of 3. So let's review. An author will use suspense to make a reader wonder or worry so that they keep reading. Suspense leads right to the main event and, of course, keeps the reader entertained. An author can use story questions, word reference, or the magic of 3 to build suspense. All good authors use suspense in a narrative story. Your teacher will give you an opportunity to practice each one of these techniques so that you can build suspense in your story too.